Podcast host looks like idiot when score prediction falls short by 4 goals. This is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot. Spinning about me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, I predicted 10-0. It was only 6-0. I'm an idiot. What do I know about football? Nothing. Well, you knew that already. Look, I got to tell you, I was trying to keep pretty quiet about it, but at halftime, that's probably the most nervous I've been in a football match in a long time. And yeah, the WhatsApp, the text messages, DMs on this, that, and the other app, Discord. A lot of people saying it's going to happen. This one's going to happen. Alas, it did not happen. And I'm not resentful. I'm not salty, maybe just a little bit. But it's pretty hard to complain when your football club delivers a 6-0 thrashing like we did. And another very easy night in front of an empty stadium. That tune, that jingle is catching on. Empty stadiums everywhere we go. And it's continuing to be a thing. This time it was a thing at around the 25th minute mark, which is probably a record. And who put the ball in the back of the net? Half the team did. Once again, they can keep criticizing our lack of a prolific goal scorer up front. It's fine by me if we get 6 of them from all over the place. So another tremendous night of Arsenal football. I will tell you, David Ornstein had broken some news a few days ago that we were looking at a couple of striker targets, Sesko, Gyökeres, and Evan Ferguson. We'll definitely be scouting them, but I got to talk to David Hartrick, our friend from Brighton, who also does some reporting on the championship as well. And he did an awesome breakdown of Ferguson and Gyökeres that I think is really valuable. And it was fun, too, because he got to talk a little bit about what's happened since Caicedo left, since Ben White left, since Trossard left, and a little bit of a look at where De Zerbi might go. And so a really fun conversation, a guy I could just listen to talk about football for hours. And I think you'll like that. It's over there if you want it. Obviously, there's an instant reaction from last night. We did player ratings 1 through like 13 of the players just to change things up a little bit yesterday. So a lot of fun stuff happening over there. But there's literally this happening here. So that's good. You got that going for you. And a man who I could listen to talk about football for hours and indeed have listened to talk about football for hours is here with me now. His name is Clive. Find him on Twitter at CliveBFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm great. You are. So I got sick, but I can't complain about being sick because you got real sick. So how's the recovery going?
It's going all right. This is the first day podded for a little while. So, yeah, it's been just looking from afar and seeing what's going on. So I'm sure the guys will tell me if my voice is holding up. I'll try my best.
You're like Sheffield United. You're in a bad moment right now. I'm just going to bully you on this podcast. I'm going to take advantage of the moment you're in, the weakness that you're showing. I'm just going to bully you off the ball.
Well, I heard your little instant reaction last night. I thought I'm going to have you two today.
Oh, no.
Not to worry.
In 30-minute instant reaction, we managed to get something that wrong? How? I hardly had anything to say. Okay, well, I think there's a lot of directions we can go here, but I want to start with a little bit of exploring what's inside our belly buttons for a minute. We'll do a little navel gazing here. I had a moment last night where I was watching this and I'm looking at the table and I'm looking at the goal difference and all right, we're 8 now, we're 9 up on City and we're 4 up now, we're 5 up on Liverpool. And I'm watching it. And as much as I know that the goal is to win the title, I had to stop myself for a minute and be like, your football club is massacring another Premier League club in front of you. And it's beautiful. And you've got players playing at the absolute top of the game. Rice playing like the best central midfielder in the world. Odegaard playing like the best 8 in the world. Saka playing like the best wide forward in the world. You got all this happening in front of you. Enjoy it. Don't take it for granted. Soak it up. And I'm wondering, I think there are a lot of people before last season who were younger fans who have never been in a title race, not a proper one. Yep. Maybe the Leicester season a little bit. 07, 08, certainly. Before that, it would have been the Invincibles. Title races are misery. That's the problem. They're the seasons you're playing the best, but they are sometimes the most miserable because the anxiety is so peaked. So how do you contextualize this and find a way to make sure that this run, 7 games, 7 wins, 31 goals for, 3 conceded, it's unprecedented. How are you finding ways to really soak it up and enjoy it as much as possible without just caving into the anxiety of the title race?
That's a really good question, Elliot. I think, and the first thing you said there was around title race. We all want to win. So let's get it out there, right? We all want to win something big. We're excited for it. It's been 20 years. We all want to win something big. But that, for me, can't be the only prism by which you look at football. Because if you do, you're falling into the traps that have been laid out there for us. So for me, I look for us to be on the up escalator. right? So if we're moving forward and going upward and improving, then everything else will come from that. And so I'm always looking for things in our play, how we approach the game, how we react to adversity, how we rebuild the squad, what type of, physical and technical animals we bring into the group, how well they're connected, right? That's really important. When you're watching the team right now, how connected do we look? And then you take that connection to the fan base, right? Is that connection there? Are people buying into what they're seeing? Do we as fans like the players? I would say 99 out of 100, we'd say yes. We have a few ones and twos that we debate, not important because there are other people doing way more things. And so when you see those things and you broaden the prism by which you look at the club, then you can enjoy it. If you're just deciding on the last day in May or the last game of the season that if we don't win the title, it's all over and this person needs to lose his job, then you are not creating an environment where you, as an individual, can truly enjoy what's happening. Because some of the things that are happening, I think not just people externally are in danger of missing it, but we could be in danger of missing it if we don't open our eyes.
I think that's entirely right. And I don't want to let that happen. I mean, if you think about the movie Fever Pitch, right? That's a title-winning season. And the subject of that movie is miserable for most of it, right?
Yeah.
So these are hard seasons to just soak the marrow out of. And if I think back to 07, 08, I think what made that season so painful is it was pretty widely agreed that Arsenal played the best football in the league that season and didn't win a title. It was a painful season, especially the way it ended. But I noticed years later, people would talk about it with a lot of reverence and appreciation. And I do think that there's going to come a time 5, 6, 7 years from now, no matter what happens at the end of the season, when people are going to sit down in front of whatever kind of, put on their Apple goggles or, Vision Pros or their VR headset or whatever the heck they are, get in their hollow chamber, and they're going to watch games from this period and they're going to be stunned and say, I don't think I appreciated this. I don't think I realized how unusual this is. Winning 6s and 5s and 6s away and dominating Liverpool and making Newcastle look like a championship side. Like, I think that there's going to be a moment when we reflect on this. And right now, there's no question in my mind we play the best football in the league. And you know what? It may result in the title, but it's just a joy to see. I think, I remember Andrew had me on a statements pod, one of his podcasts where you kind of have to agree, disagree, so on and so forth. Back at the end of December, I think it was, or early January. And the question was, would this season's Arsenal beat last season's? This season's Arsenal would beat last season's Arsenal. And it was like agree, disagree, strongly agree. And I actually said, yes, I agree. And, there was a lot of disagreement over that, as you can imagine at the time, right? Last season was so special. And this season at that time, we were really struggling to get the goals that we needed. But the reasoning I had was I hadn't seen a team be as dominant as this Arsenal, even when we weren't putting other teams to the sword with our goal scoring. I think the way we dominated games was unique. And I really felt that there were 5s and 4s and maybe not 6s coming if we could just get it right in front of goal. And I'm wondering, just thinking back on last season, the vibes were so good. And you told us we have to put last season out of our mind. We have to put it out of our mind. And at the start of this season, it really felt like we had lost some of that joy. I'd say right now, the vibes around the club, the joy around the club, the players have brought the fans back to that space. And I'm wondering how you would sort of measure now the joy, the vibes, the dominance, the level of football. I know you don't like to think back to last season, but would you say now this season has finally forged its own story that's connected with the fans? I know we haven't finished it yet, but has it created that special place that maybe was missing a few months ago?
My issue with last season was not to look back to it because it's my favourite ever season, but it was like not to use that as a stick to beat us with, because my view was not every night's a Saturday night, right? That was it. And some of those performances last year were, particularly in the first 15 games, were, unforgettable. But people forget what happened from West Ham and Anfield and Southampton and Brighton. People forget that. And so if you looked at our results over a longer period of time, we were destabilised. We were destabilised defensively. And I spoke about this end of last season's too. I said what we need to do, we need to fix up off the ball, and we have done. And the emphasis of the team for me was focused a lot more seriously on retention, domination of space, domination of getting the ball back and playing. And that was the emphasis. So the first thing you saw differently this season was a huge emphasis on retaining possession and getting it back if you lose it. which told me straight away we were more mature, more adult, more serious. So as soon as I see that, I think that's what winning teams look like. And so the other bits, Elliot, the goal scoring bits, the attacking bits, I'm not that bothered about that because I believe it comes from stability. If you have stability, you can do what you like. And so maintain that stability was really, really key for me. And we brought in 3 players really that we can use. The goalkeeper, I think, stabilised us. He's taken a little bit of pressure away at the bottom end of our pitch. Eventually, once he settled, and we got 2 off the ball monsters in Havertz and Rice that are actually quite good on the ball now as well. So straight away, look at their physicality, their running power, their ability on second balls. You add that to the group we already have that 1 year older with a little bit of anger in their stomachs, and suddenly we're looking okay. 77 touches, West Ham, in the box, we know the drill. But if you look beyond that, look beyond it, being a data guy, that was never going to last. That was never going to last for me. We was always going to get better. So for me, to see a seriousness of construct of team with a mindset, and this is the bit I want to talk about a little bit more, Elliot. I think people are missing the story that our players want to write. We're looking at Liverpool's Klopp story, looking at City repeat treble story. I'm not thinking that Martin Odegaard might actually want to win something. And the way he's running around and pressing and playing, what about the story he wants to write? What about the story that Saliba wants to write, given the fact he missed the last 10, 11 games of last season? How about him rewriting a story that he feels, maybe if he was healthy, would have been a year earlier? So people are not say disrespecting, but are missing our story. They're missing what we're trying to do. They're missing what we're trying to create as a group of players and a group of fans who are new to this as well. We're quite new to this. Many of us are new to this journey. Whether you want to admit it or not, I've forgotten what it was like. And we're new to this, so we have to go through this together. And I think these experiences are really becoming life-forming for us. So whatever happens, mate, we're on the up escalator, and that's the prism by which I'm looking at this.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the goalkeeper. I mean, emblematic of the change that's gone on is now Aaron Ramsdale's going to start our next game. I bet there are a lot of people who are going, I wish he wasn't doing that. Let's not change what's working. The same people who are probably, like myself, saying, why have we done this with the goalkeeper situation, are now not really eager to have anyone else come in between the sticks. It's just all turned around. The other thing I've noticed too is back when we were playing pretty well, but the goals weren't flying in, nobody wanted to hear about XG and data and stuff. Everybody's messaging, what was the XG? What's our data? Tell me this now everybody wants to know, because it is historic. It was 8 halves with 2 goals in each half. That is a Premier League record. It got broken in the second half, which is kind of staggering. I assumed we'd do it, but we didn't. But 8 halves. We've allowed 2.1 expected goals against in the 7 league fixtures we've played since the new year. To put in perspective how few that is, Manchester United allowed 3.3 on Saturday or Sunday, whenever they played Sunday.
Yep.
So we've allowed 2.1 in 7 games. They allowed 3.3 against Manchester City. We are doing all the things. I mean, in terms of the game last night, I mean, you probably know this already, but I mean, like William Saliba had more passes than Sheffield United. Okay. He had 179 touches, which is pretty wild. But William Saliba completed 169 of 175 passes. That bum Gabriel only completed 139 of 145. I mean, just staggering stuff that was going on out on the pitch last night. And we'll start to turn our attention to the game specifically, because this is the post-match podcast, even though it isn't really the post-match podcast, let's be honest. But yeah, I mean, we're throwing up historic data. And just in terms of going into this game, I think Mikel Arteta tends to wind his way towards a lineup that is the one he'd ideally like to pick. Now, there are players that are unavailable. Gabriel Jesus is just coming back. We don't have either of the left backs who probably would have been playing during this run, but I mean, Kivior is playing like a guy who does not want to give the shirt back. The thing that stands out to me is Jorginho. I think against these quote unquote weaker teams, I don't even have to put quote around it. Weaker teams. This is a weak Sheffield United, and you can only beat what's in front of you. They're terrible. There were aspects of the second half of this game, and even the first half, that reminded me of when Wenger used to take us to the hills of Germany for the summer. And you'd be so excited, preseason game, and the first 15, 20 minutes, we'd blow them away, and it was all celebratory, and then it just kind of became a nothing competition. That's what this felt like, but that's how good we are. But we didn't pick the sort of twin eights and a forward. We didn't put Trossard up front with Kai and Odegaard. We went with Jorginho in this game. And I think increasingly, Clive, maybe Mikel is settling on Jorginho playing as long as he feels he's fit and available, because he's become a really important part of the way we play. And so looking at this lineup, do you think there's a chance that we might settle on this even as players return as the one that we trust when that big scary fixture at the Etihad starts to roll around? Because this one's looking pretty good, candidly.
So why do you always fall for this, right?
I do fall for it.
It's like we just rush to get to a first 11. So Martinelli got a little nick on his ankle. What happens if that's a metatarsal?
Apparently it's a cut on his foot.
Yeah, I know that.
So,
but that's what I'm trying to say to you. Don't get too attracted to an 11, because one innocuous challenge can change a moment.
Okay,
right?
let's say, give me with the availability as it looks like it's trending towards. Do you still think that this group is the one that Mikel might be developing the most trust in?
For right now, maybe. And I think last night, I'll be interested to see if Jorginho plays at the weekend, because I think he should play against Porto. I think that's a really important game for him. Yeah. So you play him against Sheffield United, and I'd probably sit him for the weekend. I'd sit him and say, you're definitely gonna play a part in the first hour and 10 against Porto, because I think we need you to help direct traffic, right? To make sure we're in the right spaces. He's got a lovely dink pass, and what he does, and he's done it since the early Havertz days, is that he passes to him, and he wants to pass to him. He wants to get him going. When other people weren't passing to him, weren't able to see his runs, Jorginho was the one that did that. And right now, Havertz is looking like one of our best players, and he's definitely looking like a forward that we can play off of and really unsettle teams. And I didn't think we unsettled Porto enough in the away leg. And so I'm looking at that link. I'm looking at them two playing. So for me, you want to say as far as I want to go, Elliot, and my mind is set up for Porto. I think it's the most important game of the season. I think this team needs it on its CV massively to qualify in Champions League game. And so that's the game that I'm focused on. Obviously, we want to beat Brentford, but if we don't, the world won't end. If we lose to Porto, that's a problem for his club. And then all the narratives will be reawoken about what we can actually achieve and how good we actually are. So for me, this game was like a prep for Porto. And if this team played against Porto, I'd be fine with it. I really would. And then we make change off the bench.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's just so interesting because you get yourself comfortable with the idea that, like, our best fullback is Zinchenko, or our best striker is Gabriel Jesus, or our best central midfielder is Thomas Partey when he's back. So, but like, football evolves and players get a chance to come in and prove you wrong. And I think football should be a meritocracy. And we talked about this actually before the first Porto leg, that we kind of thought Jorginho should play in that game, but Mikel went with the team that had just given him 6-0 and 5-0 away. I think if football is a meritocracy, then a team putting up historic, unprecedented, dominant numbers like this should be given the chance to carry forward. And, look, Burnley and Sheffield United are 19th and 20th respectively, but West Ham is an upper mid-table team. Newcastle is an upper mid-table team that has European aspirations and was a Champions League team this season. And Liverpool is top of the league, and they got made to look like a small club by us. I mean, I really believe that. I mean, if you look at the data behind the way we beat Liverpool, it wasn't close. So, I think this isn't just dismissible as we played the worst. I mean, if you look at Liverpool, for example, granted, they have a major injury crisis, but they snuck past Forest. During this injury crisis they've been in, you know which teams they played? The last 4 games? 17, 18, 19, 20. Or 16, 17, 18, 19. Something like the point is, they played the bottom 4 roughly, or even bottom 5 maybe in their last 5 fixtures. So while they're on a bit of a run, it's fallen for them a little bit. And frankly, I think if they had taken the team that went to Forest to a more competent side, if they had gone to Brighton away with that team, or if they had gone to, Newcastle away, or God forbid to the Emirates, I think you would have seen a very different situation. A little unfortunate, obviously, the way the Forest game ended, but the less said about that, the better. Um, the thing I also think, so the game kicks off, and, I've watched a lot of football over the last 25 years or so, 27 years. And like, the thing that sticks out to me is there are a lot of poor teams that are still able to sort of organize themselves and get into a shape where, they're compact and they're hard to break down. We always say it, right? A low block is hard to break down. Any team that wants to sit deep and be organized. But they made a change for this game. They tried to put Trusty out on Saka's side. That was obviously a disaster. Didn't work at all. But just we came at them with an absolute relentlessness. And one of the things that was very different earlier in the season, we said the thing that was lost from last season to this season was the fast starts.
Yeah.
That was really the hallmark of last season, fast starts.
Yeah.
And with Newcastle, you really saw it come back. Like we were flying out of the blocks. We flew out of the blocks in this game. And Clive, I would say maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes against Sheffield United, I thought 10-0 wasn't enough. Is that the most intense, sort of aggressive, dominant quarter or so of a football match you've seen? Because for me, that period, I know Sheffield United are bad. I've seen some of their games this season, but I haven't seen anything quite like that. It was staggering.
Yeah, full disclosure, when we're the last game of the weekend, I can always find a reason to be nervous. So I've got no shame in saying, I wonder how we're going to go.
Thierry Henry, too, by the way. He was saying he was worried about this game beforehand.
Yeah,
so
when everyone's telling you you're beautiful, you don't need that sometimes, right? And all the numbers were pointing towards, we were going to do well. And I don't like it when Arsenal get overpraised, even though I seek praise from the external world. When I get it, I feel that's enough of that. I don't need any of that. Do you know what I mean? So, so I was sort of worried. So when Saka hit the bar, I'm thinking, oh man, I hope you're not going to regret that later on. Then we have another chance. Oh man.
We do, because that could have gotten us closer to 10.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. But then again, this is what dawned on me. I thought, no, I'm underestimating the players' ambition. I'm getting this wrong. By getting nervous, I'm getting this wrong. I'm not realizing that they might actually want it as much as we all do. Do you know what I mean? Like really want it. And they've sat on their hands for 9 days and said, nah, we're not accepting this. We're going to tear your throats out in the first 10 minutes. And they're going for it. And I don't, you're right, obviously, you know about game state. There's been great stuff written about game state and how it affects games, etc. But I was also conscious of the fact that you just can't sprint out every game and hope it goes your way and then just jog out the last hour. That's not how life is. That's not how football is. And there is a course here that we're trying to run. And we didn't run the course well last year. We had no legs left when it came to it. We're trying to create energy and strength when it really matters. And we are getting stronger. Right now, we're sitting here in March. We've got players, real stalwart players in this group that are not fit, not ready, but will be in 2-3 weeks' time, which makes everything stronger. And giving us the ability to manage any adversity we may get. So we can't see right now. We just can't see it because everything's beautiful. But we will, Gabriel Jesus may not be looking super sharp, although he's looking a lot slimmer, by the way. A lot slimmer. So the potential is there for him to come back super sharp. And we're going to be looking out for him if we're 1-1 10 minutes ago in the European game. We're going to be looking out for his feet. Trust me, we're looking out for him. And so we just need to create room in our minds for all of them. But we're getting stronger and the course looks like we're ready for it. If we get a bit more luck with injury at the right time, so rather than lose them in the first parts of the season or the critical parts, we get them back. And I think that could be the clincher for us.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how Mikel integrates players. I think, again, you cannot emphasize enough the luxury he's had of being able, not only playing once a week this time of the season, but being able to take players out at 60 minutes, 70 minutes, halftime. Saka was a little under the weather, so he only has to play a half. In the prior games, he'd been coming off at 60 minutes, 70 minutes. That's not a thing we'd been able to do previously. And the flip side of that coin is it means players you'd really like to get back up to speed, get meaningful minutes. Fabio Vieira got an entire half in this game. I'm sure Gabriel Jesus was fit enough to play 30 minutes and might have played 30 minutes regardless, but he got his 27 minutes in this game. Thomas Partey got 26 minutes in this game. Those are things that are partly a luxury because of what we're doing to teams. And so there's hopefully going to be more opportunity for that. I think going into that Porto game, for example, I don't think Thomas Partey's going to start. I don't think Gabriel Jesus is going to start even, although, his Champions League record speaks for itself. But I think if they get another half hour again against Brentford, Mikel's going to be a lot more confident that if he needs them, he can use them. And so this was really valuable time.
Yeah.
Let's roll back though to some of the dominant performances in this game, because some of these players are hitting a level that, you kind of hoped they could hit, but you weren't sure. And I want to start by focusing on Martin Odegaard. I think, Kai Havertz might have had a man of the match performance if Odegaard wasn't determined to just wrest it away from him, because he was stunning. And I think we always want to compare one player to another and then put them in that box, right? So when someone is sort of your 10, which is kind of what we thought Odegaard was going to be, you want to put him in the Ozil box, you want to put him in this box or that box. But Martin Odegaard does so many things. He will drop deep and take it off the defenders and, be in the first line of buildup. He'll get into the box and be our best finisher. I think he is. I think he's our best finisher. He will be your safety valve. The thing that I called out on the instant reaction that jumps out to me about Odegaard, the way he manipulates the ball in tight spaces, teams don't really get the ball off him. And they'll put two guys around him. But if he gets the ball, he doesn't give it away. And the other thing is, sometimes you'll see this, and it can be clever, by the way. Sometimes you have players who will get the ball, they'll manipulate it, they'll feel the contact, and they'll go down. And that's how they'll get out of pressure, right? They'll win a foul. Odegaard doesn't go down. He finds a way out of it. And by attracting that extra player, oftentimes by finding a way out, that's how we break through. So I am just flabbergasted by him. He had a pass out to the left wing to Martinelli. I think it was for a goal, maybe for Rice's goal, where he just had this weird technique where he spun it way out to the left. He has the big swing passes. He has a little punch passes. I love this performance from Martin Odegaard. And I would say, Clive, that earlier in the season, he had that hip issue. I don't think we saw the best of him. I think this is the best Odegaard these last few weeks that we've ever seen. This was from another planet.
Yeah, I wonder if I can take Odegaard and Havertz together, Elliot, if that's okay with you.
Because Havertz could have been man of the match if it weren't for Odegaard. I mean, there's something happening there for sure.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And when we saw them press together, I think it might have been against Liverpool, and they were the front two per se, and on occasions pressing. And then when Trossard came in, what all three of them have is what Scott would call XG received. So their ability to receive the ball is
it's expected threat received, right? XT, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, mate.
But for me, you got to get your acronyms
right. The reason why, let's see if I'm right? So the reason why I say that is their ability to be available to show their feet is really, really strong. But not only that, to create a body angle which makes the next touch unsettle the defender, right? And that's the effort and the work that comes into it. So you've got to be really fit and sharp and light on your feet to receive it in a way where your first touch kills somebody stone dead, because the angles you've created and your receiving angles. And I think Havertz and Odegaard have really, for me, unlocked this team offensively, because you can always play into them. And from there, our running players come into play. So suddenly looking at the screen yesterday, and particularly on maybe the third goal, the Martinelli goal, just look at the ability to receive it, cut it across the middle, keep it going the same direction. Look at the runners piling forward, keep your little set. And Martinelli, unlike in December, not taking 3 touches trying to cut it to top corner, taking an early shot before anyone settled, getting a deflection, 3-0. Same team, but now the receiving skills are better. The running skills are more in tune. And now we're taking early shots, embracing the imperfection. There was no perfect shot there, but he took it early on his wrong foot. That to me is the big step forward. It comes from Havertz and Odegaard. Their ability to just receive the ball and keep it moving is just so good. And if you're one of the back players and your numbers are going up for the roof, it's no surprise to me that Havertz is someone you can find. Odegaard is someone you can always find him, but they're just not they're keeping it for just the right amount of time to allow the more bombastic runners to then fire off on the other side. And so, they've completely changed, for me, the ceiling of this team offensively. And Trossard's in that group as well. But Havertz and Odegaard, their tandem play is the thing that's clicked it for me.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the evolution of Kai's role and how the team is sort of understanding him. I think I continue to be impressed by his off the ball work, though. Like the thing that creates the platform for all of these very talented players to perform is what we do out of possession. And this was like Sheffield United got put in a box that just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You know what I mean? It's like watching a boa constrictor. And suddenly our center backs are on the edge of their attacking, their defensive third, and their most attacking player is standing on the edge of his own box. They have no outlet. They have nowhere to go. And as that box gets smaller and smaller and the spaces get tighter and tighter, all of a sudden these wonderfully skillful players can just combine and connect. And it's so interesting to see as the space gets compressed, how players now who maybe were on the periphery of the attack can find their way into more dangerous spaces. Clive?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said there about Kai's role. So straight away, my bristles go up because it's never one role. It's more than one role. And the reason why we can have that discussion is because of what you just said. The space by which we play in is quite reduced. So Kai can be a midfielder and a forward and a false nine and a channel stretcher all in one game.
All within 10 yards.
or within 15, 20 yards maximum. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you have a team squished into that amount of space, your ability to contract and expand is your skill. And what can Kai Havertz do? He can contract the space in, receive it in the crowd. But if you need him to stretch it, he can stretch it. If you need him to link it, he can link it. You see what I mean? And so if you need to fight back for a second ball, he can do that. If you need to win the first ball off a header, he can do that. He can win it in the box in the air. So suddenly you're giving him multiple roles within a framework that he can survive in. And the reason why Jorginho is surviving so well is, guess what? The space is reduced. So he's just jogging around. He's jogging around with a flipping pipe and slippers on and deciding what he's going to have for dinner later on. Little tip-tap, tip-tap. Never has to run 15, 20 yards to go and tackle anybody because his centre-back's right next to him, smashing everybody. And so he's in an armchair. And so the game it's gone to him. This game has gone to him. There'll be other games where he will get stretched when he can't get to the pitch of the ball. And then we'll see the things he can't do. Right? Then other people have to come in behind him and cover him, right? So I do think having the ability to do multiple roles is really important because of the space by which we're playing in. At this moment in time, Odegaard, where is he playing? Deep, high, in the box, centre forward. Why?
Left, right?
He left. Just get on the ball and move it.
Has his role evolved? Because I think Odegaard was very much a right half space player for a while. And I think Mikel Arteta was probably working with this team to really, really, really understand positional football, spacing, where you need to be, how to cover for one another, how to close down the spaces.
Yeah.
I think we must have hit some achievement. We unlocked an achievement in Mikel's eyes because I think what I saw, maybe it was just for this opponent, it could just be this unique game, but Odegaard was given license to just go wherever he wanted. He was on the left a lot, combining over there. He was on the right. Sometimes he'd be between Gabriel and Saliba. Sometimes he'd be arriving in the box to score from, the center of the box. So is this a new thing, you think, or is this a more of a unique situation for an opponent that just couldn't match our movement and our quality?
I think it's a common theme going now, Elliot. Remember we spoke about rotations last time I could speak? We spoke about the depth of rotations. So let's just take that theory on about where the Odegaard's roles. So Martinelli, where's he playing now? If I said to you, where's he playing? We know that he's primary position to receive it. But once he's popped it off, where's he going? He can end up anywhere, can't he? Anywhere. He's inside, he's running off to the right wing. He's gone. Saka, he's ending up on a penalty spot regularly now in the interior. Ben White, where's he playing right now? So I'm asking the question. I generally will ask you the question. He's playing exactly where his team needs him to play.
Well, I want to ask you about that too, because this is really interesting to me. I don't think either fullback is really fully invert. Like Zinchenko had a very clear role. I think you could spot. He went and he stood right next to Declan Rice. That's where he stood, and that was his role. since Jorginho's coming in, maybe it had to do with Rice playing 8 or different play. Like sometimes the person standing next to Jorginho was Saliba. Sometimes it was Martin Odegaard. But White and Kiwior both overlapped at times in this game. I don't think you could say that the fullbacks were inverting in the way we're traditionally used to. Now, again, it's hard in this game because we had the ball almost entirely in the attacking third. And that makes it difficult to assess how we were building play because we were very rarely building play at all. It's so that makes it difficult to analyze this game, and you have to look at it through a very specific lens. But I think the thing that Kiwior has done too by coming in, Clive, because he stays wider, we're starting to see a Martinelli, and we saw this, by the way, against Newcastle as well and against other teams. We're starting to see a Martinelli who's making runs across the box to the right, who's getting more interior, who's receiving it in the half space, not just out wide. So is this maybe a new dynamic where the fullbacks don't need to invert and we let other players create that sort of cradle for the team?
Yeah. Cradle's one of the words I use earlier. It's exactly the sort of thing I thought we should do. However, for me, it's not about inverting and this player being wide. It's about just not being on the same line. That's the principle. If Martinelli drops inside, Kiwior drops outside, and vice versa. Kiwior had a shot in this game from the edge of the area, from the interior. Right, so he feels he can have that shot. He feels he can stand there. And so these are the principles, right? The principles are you go where you like, but if your mate goes 2 lanes in, you better go 1 lane out because that's the shape, that's the net we want to throw over this team. What we don't want to be is too lopsided, so we don't cover the pitch, and we don't ring people in to create waves of attack. So, mate, Martinelli, you go, you disappear. Jorginho will make sure he stands in a space where you need to be. Even if I might get run, I don't care. I need to stand there and discourage people from running into it. You see what I mean? And if Jorginho disappears, Declan Rice is thinking, well, I better not find myself on the far post beyond the ball. I better just hold here in case this breaks down so I can win the race backwards. You know, it's just simple. And it's just simple stuff. It's what you call a team. And so I'm looking for these connections. And I'm looking for the fact that if someone does something, no one else cares about their own personal ego, they'll cover for them. And I always look at Odegaard for this. He always makes those sprints back into right back slot. If we break down on that side, which we did yesterday when Vieira messed up, and Odegaard straight in behind, no problem, 15, 20-yard doggy, delay, kick it over the bar, see you later. Do you know what I mean? This is the stuff that's going to hold us in good stead. When we go to the Etihad, when we got to go to Wolves, we got to go to these, to Spurs. These are the principles that are going to hold us together. You know, they're not so evident against Sheffield United, but they're going to hold us together when we're playing 3 games in a week, and maybe those passes are not quite as sharp. Maybe we're not sprinting away from people. How do we get through the bad periods? And it's these principles that's going to make us do that.
It reminds me a little bit, too, of what happened when we moved Xhaka up to left 8 last season. You know, I mean, players have skills that you're maybe not aware of in the role they're playing, and they have weaknesses that you're maybe too aware of in the role they're playing, and then you move them into a slightly different role, and the weaknesses are a little bit de-emphasized, but some of those other skills flourish. Declan Rice is a good example. Declan Rice has almost no flaws, but I don't think he's the most progressive passer we have. I think Jorginho, for example, is probably a little bit better in terms of
different
pure
passes.
Verticality in his passing and tempo of his passing. But when you move Rice up a line, first of all, you see this incredible ball striking now, a really good understanding. He played some 1-2s. I mean, some of the one-touch passing, I think the thing that was missing earlier in the season is everyone wanted an extra touch, was measuring their passes, was taking their time. Now it's hitting the foot and leaving the foot right away. Rice was brilliant at that. But the thing he can do, look, when he's deeper, his recovery runs are elite. Very hard to counter on an Arsenal that has Declan Rice deeper. But when he's up higher, you can't get out. How do you get out when Declan Rice is hovering over you 1 foot away from you? The other thing that it lets him do is strike the ball. And he is, we just now have some elite ball strikers in that front line. Odegaard and Rice and Saka and Martinelli are all elite ball strikers. Kai, maybe not quite in that same group, but that's okay. Ben White, obviously an elite ball striker.
The old pillow feet Kai thing is starting to disappear because his passing is so much crisper, and his shot was side netting job, mate. That's that is like that is different class, that finish. So it just goes to show, right, what's in somebody. You haven't got to worry too much.
he just like, there was this one time where he got the ball under pressure and he kind of like passed the ball between his feet to himself, sort of like a 1-2 with himself and like back off to Declan Rice. And he keeps the ball really nicely in those tight spaces because he has that big frame and his feet are soft. So that can be a negative in some ways, but it can
Yeah.
be a huge positive when a big man has soft feet like that. But yeah, so I think we saw in Rice in the 8 role here a little something different, things that can come out in his game by playing him in that position. And it's just wonderful. I think to the extent that there was a sense that Mikel was robotic and there was one way of playing and we're starting to see variations on a theme. We're starting to see players given license do other things. I think it really benefited Martinelli in this game, who looked great. By the way, probably should have had a goal in the first minute. Saka, very unlucky, hits the bar, and then Martinelli does that wonderful outside of the boot skill that's cleared off the line.
He's playing really well to me. Really well. I'm really impressed with him.
And I think it's no surprise also that players are starting to understand their partnerships a little more, right? So the 1-2s are happening because players are starting to understand where their teammate's going to be, how their passing tempo is, what their tendencies are, how to get it to the strong foot versus weak foot, all these things you learn when there are some new players in. By the way, 10,000th goal for Arsenal comes from Ben White. It's a beautiful ball, but again, the way that goal happens, right? It's a ball over the top that Kai just takes down so beautifully, right? Those soft feet to take it down and cuts it back to Ben White. And for a guy who doesn't love football, or at least watching it, he loves playing it. Like, that is a stunning strike. I don't even think he looked at it when he hit it. Beautiful goal.
And that's a relationship thing because Jorginho loves that dink. What he does, he receives it off the side and his shoulders are saying, he's telling you where he's going. He loves that little dink pass. He dinks over the top. And the guy knows he's coming. So he's off into the channels. Soft touch, chop. Chops it, bounce chop. It means the defender can't get it. And then he lays it off and Ben White does the business. And I will say, some of the narratives around our players do sort of bore me a little bit. The whole Ben White not loving football thing, well, it's just boring because you don't look like he does. You don't play like he does if you don't study the game. You don't love the game. He just maybe emphasizes time off, which I hope they all do. Because if you wrap yourself up in his game too much, he can eat you up, right? So I think that's just poor. Steve Holland, mate, you can do one. The whole England squad around the stuff that's leaked out of England squad around Ben White is disgraceful, in my opinion. But he'll just continue to play and can continue to play well for Arsenal and get plenty of rest, and that's all I care about. And Kai Havertz, another one, again misread for me. I took a bit of stick off the Disco Boys for it, but misread. And by the way, misread before we had a chance to even read him, because I didn't know who he was before he came. So I didn't see why we should be shutting doors on somebody while we were still learning about him. And so for me, to see him flourish, and he really flourished last night, Elliot. I thought he was bossing it, mate. That was beyond having a good game. That was, I'm now one of the best players in one of the best teams. And I'm not accepting being a flower on the sideline. I thought he was excellent.
And I think there's even another layer, because I still think we can probably find him better with crosses and area, balls in the air in the box. That's another layer that I think we can add to this. It is interesting because, to your point, the way we compress the spaces and the way we move interchangeably around the box, the idea that he's playing center forward or he's playing left 8, I don't know that it matters all that much.
Nope.
If you wanted to play him at left 8 with Jesus and put Rice back deeper, I'm fine with that. I think you lose a little ball progression from Jorginho, but you just collapse the space and teams can't get out. You don't have to have that ball progression as much. The thing that's going to be interesting, I think, for Mikel to decide with a game like City.
Maybe that's a Zinchenko day on that day, Elliot. Do you know what I mean?
Could be, to get the ball progression back in. Yeah,
exactly. And that's how you do it. You just mix and match it depending on who you have available, right? So,
yeah, you go for characteristics. And instead of thinking of, players, you think about the traits you want in the team. And the thing that'll be interesting with the Rice role, I loved him playing 8 in a game like this. And I could see us going with this kind of lineup against Porto to really try to trap them deep and pull them to, just crush them into dust.
Yeah.
But against a Manchester City, where you are not going to have it all your own way, what you cannot have is what happened last season at the Etihad, where De Bruyne is finding Haaland. De Bruyne is finding space behind our midfield and setting up Haaland for runs. So you know how maybe you stop that? Maybe that's a day where you let Declan Rice play deeper because you're not going to run him. You're not going to run him off the ball. He's not going to get, lost in that kind of transition. And that's not a Jorginho game, right? Because what you're not trying to do is have sort of that controlled metronomic passing and verticality. You're trying to make sure that you shut down the spaces to counter against you the way they did in the game last season. And so it really gives us the ability to be thoughtful about what the opposition can do as well. How much can they hurt us? How much possession will they have? And we had 81% of the ball in this game. So you don't need Declan Rice sitting in front of Gabriel and Saliba. Against City, maybe you go back to doing something like that. Gives you a lot of options.
Yeah, it depends how I'm already thinking about City. I'm sure you are as well, right?
Yeah, everyone is, yeah.
So it depends by the space we want to play in. And it's going to be interesting to see what we do and what we're forced to do. So if we're forced to play in a more stretched out game, I think we can deal with it. Well, I know we can. We have the running power. They go long, we can win it, and we can win the second ball. So do what you like there. We're not going to be able to be outrun like we were last season when we were hobbled and Xhaka was sick, remember? And we had Rob Holding. So the spaces were we were not in control of them, right? So that will be different. Do we want to squeeze the space and slow the game down like we did in the home game and just play? If we are going to do that, Jorginho could play. If not, Partey plays. Partey plays for me because he can control the ball. So what I mean by this, when you win it back, Elliot, the key thing, you heard me say a million times, you must keep it for 2 or 3 passes. And so the ability to receive and keep is really important. So receive, keep under pressure. So it's a risk and reward thing. You receive it, so you have to show yourself, but then keep it. You're playing out of pressure. We do that 2, 3 times. You watch the pressure dissipate. You watch it disappear because they're going to think, we can't afford to let Saka Martinelli running into wide spaces because Saka will take on Aki and Martinelli will take on Walker. They're not scared of them. They're not going away. This isn't flipping Raheem Sterling. This ain't Noddy Makaweki. We're coming for them. This isn't Anthony. Do you see what I mean? We're coming for these players. And they will not be comfortable one-on-one. So John Stones having this roaming role. Roam away, my friend. Roam away. You roam away, leave Diaz on his own with Kai Havertz. Let's see what happens. Let's see if you can hold him. I don't think you can hold him for the entire game to stop him laying the ball off. And so the game changes. I'm so looking forward to see us go there, hopefully, touch wood, manned up, strengthed up, man on man, and say, this is what we got. What have you got? And I'm really looking forward to that.
And let's face it, in the games against the big 6 or whatever you want to call them, big 7, you pick your way of describing them, I think we've measured up exceptionally well this season. In fact, we're top of that mini league. So I welcome the challenge. We're certainly going to come into that having played less football. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We still got to wax poetic about Bukayo Saka. We got to talk about the returning players. I'd like to put the title race into context a little bit and talk a little bit about what happened this weekend, maybe to Manchester United a little bit. So in order to do that, I have to do this. First, I have to tell you about tools to shave your privates. Like if I didn't tell you about tools to shave your privates, you could be sitting there with unkempt, unsightly hair around your privates. We're getting close to bikini season. Bathing suit season. I'm going for a little holiday, my first real true holiday in many, many years in April, like an idiot, of course, when we're going to play 400 games, but it's more of a beachy vacation. And, my Speedo, I'm going to look resplendent because of Manscaped. Now, Manscaped has given me copy related to St. Patrick's Day. I'll level with you. I'm guessing it's 90% culturally inappropriate, so I'm simply not going to read the copy. I'm just going to tell you that St. Patrick's Day is coming and they want you to know that. The Lawnmower 5.0. The 5.0. So they added one thing to the 5.0, and I think it's really smart. It was just a sensational trimmer. It continues to be a sensational trimmer, but now there's a foil blade. So if you want to go fully smooth, not just trim, but fully smooth, the foil blade is a way to do that. To avoid nicks and cuts. It's waterproof. You use it in the shower. Look, you probably have a razor blade in the shower. It's just not good. Just you get the Lawnmower 5.0, super long battery life. I literally cannot tell you the last time I charged mine. That's how long the battery life is. Leave it in the shower if you want. Take it with you. It's got a travel lock. It is induction charging, so you don't have to plug it in. Just sit it in its cradle and it charges. It's beautiful. And they got all kinds of things to go with this, by the way. You've got the Beard Hedger. If you have a beard, their Beard Hedger Pro kit is great. They have the Handyman electric face shaver. So if you have a beard, they have the Beard Hedger Pro. They have the Handyman electric face shaver. So many great tools. You can clean up your neckline. You can clean up your beard. You can shave your face completely. You can shave your body and just be set for the season of showing off your body, which is not that far away now. So get 20% off free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping. I only shop with free shipping on the internet. So now you can get it with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. This St. Patrick's Day, they say a thing that I'm not going to say. Just get Manscaped good enough. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp isn't online therapy, it's therapy. Look, it's this simple. You can find a therapist that matches your needs, either a specialist or a generalist, but a certified therapist that can meet your needs from your home. You don't get in a car. You don't drive to an office. You don't find out, I didn't really connect with that man or woman, and now I have to drive even further from home. It's more affordable. It's access to a critical thing, mental health. And sometimes I think we associate mental health with crisis, and that is why I think we fall into a trap with it. It doesn't have to be a crisis. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just something doesn't feel right. I'm in a rut. I need to find my happiness. I need to find my way to feeling contented. BetterHelp can give you the ability to access therapy more easily and more affordably. Well, try it. Like all I can say to anyone who's never tried therapy is try it. You're going to find the difference it makes when you talk to someone who is a professional at helping you work on that part of who you are. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/vision today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/vision. Do it now. And last but not least, the one that I get asked the most about, that's NordVPN. NordVPN, do you know you can sign up for services like streaming services and stuff in other countries where they cost less? Like you could use a VPN, and instead of signing up in your country where they may charge more, you could sign up in a foreign country and actually get a discount just by signing up in a foreign country and literally pay for your NordVPN just by doing that. That's kind of cool if you think about it. NordVPN lets you watch Match of the Day when you're not in the UK. When I go over to the UK, like I was just recently, or in Portugal, and I want to watch, a game that's not broadcast there, I just go back to my Peacock account. In the US, you can even sign up for one from the UK with NordVPN. So it's a great way to be able to watch all the football and maybe avoid some of the dodgy links that you sometimes have to go to, right? You don't want to do that. You don't have to. It's also got threat protection and privacy protection, which is getting increasingly important on the web, especially as more and more of your data is being scraped for AIs and things like that. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision to get 2 years with a huge discount and 4 months plus gifts. Okay. Now, by the way, that particular deal is just for the US, UK, Australia, and Canada. Okay. So you'll get something else if you're in another area, but grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn/ArsenalVision to get a discount on 2 years, 4 extra months, and gifts since 30-day money-back guarantee. Clive, is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Bukayo Saka played half of football, and that's all that was needed for us to blow Sheffield United off the pitch. Austin Trusty clearly couldn't live with him. I think Bukayo Saka is adding strings to his bow, and it's easy sometimes when we think someone is one of the best players in the league, Clive, to just assume this is who they are. I know Bukayo Saka. I know everything in his game. I know who he is because he's a star and I know who he is. But he's 22. So you don't know who he is yet. You don't really. You know who he's been so far. But at 22, he's not who he is yet. And he's adding strings to his bow. I think the way he's taking the ball in the half turn and driving to the byline is new. Not totally new, but he's manipulating the ball to get players unsettled. His balance is better than their balance. And so he uses his balance to unsettle them to the inside. They assume he'll go to his left and he drives to his right. And you look at the own goal comes from doing that. And his assist for
Rice.
Was it Odegaard?
Rice.
Who was it? Rice. Thank you. There it is. Comes from doing that. So I don't know. I think he's always been strong in the ball. He's always been hard to barge off. He's always been able to shift it to his left foot and beat people. People are cottoning on to his left foot technique. So he's added this sort of half-turn feint inside and go to the byline that now players can't match. I think he's gone up a level, which is not surprising for a 22-year-old.
He's just playing. He's just playing his opponent. If you're gonna,
but he's playing better.
Yeah, he's playing really well. But I didn't agree with some of the critique he was getting before because I was watching the games, and every game I was watching, he was the guy that created the first chance. He was the guy that created the first shot. just because they weren't going in, people were starting to wonder a few things. Mate, no one can be perfect all the time. He's the game breaker for this team, and he's the game breaker in this game, even though he was at half pace and half power. And so what I do like about him is how he's really focusing on his opponent and different ways to skin them. Right, so sometimes he goes slow and says, "Yeah, you're going to stand off me. I'm going to dink a pass straight through there. So stand off me if you want. You're going to get tight. I'm going to do you one touch around the corner. If you get too tight, if you're not tight enough. If you want to smash me, I'll tell you what, I'll just square up. You can smash me from behind, but I'm laying it off to somebody else who's going to go out the other side. So you better be careful if you smash me, because you're going to be out of the game and we're going to be going down the other side of the pitch. If you don't get quite tight enough, I'm not going to stop the ball. I'm just going to let it go through. And it becomes a running race and go around the outside." So what happened this game, which was quite shameful from Sheffield United, they start costing Trusty out at left back, which for me is not the issue, is how you backed him up. And the guy on the inside, I don't know who it was, or I should know his name, basically hid in the inside and basically hid in a position that told Saka, go down the outside because I can't get there. He didn't back up his man correctly, left him on island, and Trusty thinking, I don't really want to be caught in this place, so I'm going to stand off. Two players standing off. It's a simple step over this to the byline. I mean, quite shameful setup, but also maybe, I don't want to hammer Sheffield United too much, because
Why?
you never, well, there's a saying in football, you never fail, you just find your level. And it's quite clear to me there was a set of players on that pitch to realise that this guy was at a different level to them. And they were trying to survive within the construct of the game. And they didn't. And within 13 minutes, they're making a substitution to try to get somebody who could move his feet side to side on the outside to then feed Saka into Trusty. But Trusty decided, I don't like it out there. I'm going to tuck right the way in. So he got him finally. So he done them as well. And for those who play football, who quite close to football, these common traits that you see from teams that are getting done, they're just getting done. And you just walk away and shake their hands and get on the bus. And so yeah, different class, mate. We were talking about him. I can remember Tim getting really upset about how Saka was overplayed in certain moments late in games, particularly in front of him. So he has a bit of bias there. And now we're taking chances to get him out of the pitch where we can. And I think it's really important to us, because wherever we say our wide men are massive, aren't they? They're massive to us.
Yeah. And here's the only thing, right? I don't want to frame this as disagreeing with you, but I want to frame it as viewing it slightly differently, right? This is big boy football. This is try to win the Premier League, try to win the Champions League football. And we think Bukayo Saka might be blossoming into the best wide player in the world, right? Certainly while Salah's not playing. He's in that category. Vinicius Jr. would have a quibble with that. Mbappe, I don't think is a wide player, so I'll take him out of that conversation. But he's in the group. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
There are stats going around. He had his, 50 assists now or whatever it is. He's breaking records, getting into groups that very few people have done anything like it, especially by his age. So he's in the conversation. Once you enter that conversation, the way you're evaluated is going to be different. I'm not going to ask Gabriel Martinelli to be quite as good as I'm going to ask Bukayo Saka, because Martinelli might get there someday, but he's just not in that conversation right now. He's just not. Mohamed Salah is going to get evaluated differently than a lot of players. So is Mbappe, so is Vinny Jr., so was Ronaldo, so was Messi. So these generational talents who get into the elite tier of the game, the expectations are different. And my honest view is that Bukayo Saka, before we went to Dubai, was looking a little jaded and giving us less than I know he can. And that's based on the very high standards he's set. And I do think he was carrying something. I think the Achilles thing might have been it. I do think some of the burst was missing. We saw him walk in ways that we don't usually see him walk, losing balls that he doesn't usually lose, just loose with the ball a little bit. And what's happened? He got time off. He got warm weather training. He's playing a little less, and the burst is back like it hasn't been all season. So he may have come in for a little bit of unfair criticism vis-a-vis him being very, very good. But I would say that he wasn't as good as his prodigious talent can allow him to be. And we've seen him come back and look not just sensational, but even better than we've seen him before. So it's a credit to him and his work and his superior talent. So I'm
I
delighted
don't
for him,
think
and I'm delighted for us.
excuse me. I don't think it's about disagreement. It's about acceptance that someone can have a dip in form.
Mm,
And I am more accepting that a player every now and again will not play brilliant every single minute of
yeah.
every single game. I'm just accepting of it, right? It's what we do or other people do. So when he's not doing it, who's going to step up? When I still looked at those games where he wasn't at his best, he's still the one that stepped up. He's still the one of all that front four whose numbers went away, whose numbers maintained the entire season. His numbers maintained. So I was more defensive of him because I felt he was
Mm,
closer to producing something we expected rather than Martinelli, Odegaard, and Jesus, who dropped away massively compared to last season numbers at that time. So that was my position there. And although we love this team and we love these players, it's not so long ago I'm hearing people saying Jared Bowen is better than Saka, and then we got the weekend of Foden is better than Saka and all the rest of it.
there are still people saying it. It's
And
crazy.
there's still people saying it. So we have to get our heads out of our asses and just focus on the next thing. The next thing is we need to keep doing it because in the end, no one's going to give us any flowers until we change the narrative. And the narrative for this team, whether we like it or not, eventually in the next 2 years, and we've got contracts signed for 3 to 4 years, in that window, we have to win something, right? So, and that's not putting pressure on the team because I'm sure they want to win something. They don't. They want their careers to be defined by winning something big. And everything that we're looking on a TV screen right now is telling me they want to win something big, right? So, what we have to do what I have to do as a fan is say, okay, you're a bit low there. Why are we low? What's gone wrong? What's changed? Is it form? Is it injury? There are things we don't know about off the pitch, no doubt. Is it injury? And then we recover, and then we recover to something like this. Do we have a situation with Havertz where we're not sure what his role is? Has he settled? You can see it coming. You can see it settling. Suddenly, he's arrived at the right time, right? So, with the help of his teammates, right, who give him the ball in situations that he can thrive in. It's just the journey of the season, and it doesn't mean that you can't highlight it, Elliot. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't mean you can't say that
Mm-hmm.
someone's dipped away a little bit or someone had a hip injury. It doesn't mean you can't highlight it. I do think I'm just a little bit more acceptance of form, and when this group dips away, who's going to step up now? The next ones. And maybe some of the ones that are rusty right now are the ones that we're going to be looking at to maybe backfill some of these.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think also, look, the football calendar is relentless. And last season / last year in particular, it was exceptionally relentless because of the World Cup, right? There's been an African Cup of Nations, an Asia Cup. There's just been all this stuff. It's been relentless. And I don't think it's like earlier in the season, people were saying, what's wrong with the attack? Myself included. There were questions about it. But the one thing I always said is we're playing well enough that it should balance out, because unless you thought last season was a blip, and actually last season was the mirage and this season was the reality, we're just underperforming what our data and our eyes tell us, and eventually it'll start to fly in. And now it is flying. And now when we get 2.2 expected goals, we're scoring 6. 2.8 expected goals, we're scoring 4. 2.3 expected goals, we're scoring 5. 3.6, we're scoring 6. That wasn't the case early in the season. But I don't want to be an excuse maker. But we know Ben White was carrying an injury. We know Odegaard had a hip injury. We know Saka had an Achilles injury. Like, again, I'm not trying to be an excuse maker, but I don't think it's a coincidence that when they finally got a break from the relentlessness, went to warm weather training, got away, got their feet up, got out of the relentless pace of the fixture calendar, and got back to something more like full fitness to the extent that any professional footballer ever gets to be fully fit, this is what you see. We saw catch up with this with the Saliba back injury last season, and we've seen us lose Thomas Partey again and again, and Tomiyasu again and again, and Gabriel Jesus again and again. By the way, Zinchenko, right? I also want to make the point that, like, let's have a little bit of self-reflection here, right? Because there's a lot of people being very critical of Gabriel Jesus. Get rid. He just can't stay fit. Get rid. Are we going to be saying that about Timber when he has his second setback coming off major knee injury, in 6 months' time? Because this is what happens. You get a major knee injury. There's no time in the calendar for you to get fully right. So you're coming back a little sooner than you might have. And then you're playing a little more than you should have. And then the thigh goes. And then the knee has fluid on it. And then the calf goes. Like, are we going to be saying this about Timber in 6-8 months? I just think we have to maybe bite our tongue a little bit when we get frustrated that Tommy's still not back or Zinchenko's still not back or Jesus is, looking a little rusty, because players get injuries that probably need 6 months to just have their feet up, but football doesn't let you do that. And so I think the players that were carrying knocks are now fit, and we're seeing the benefit of that, which allows me. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I thought you finished, but
yeah.
I just wanted to say another reason why I didn't want to box us into last season's analysis was last season we had a unique season with the World Cup in the middle of it. And so that changed everything. Once a lifetime season for us, maybe not, till 2035, whenever it is. And also, Elliot, this season, for the first time in 7 years, we're in the Champions League. And so the cadence of the season, the cadence of the pressure of games was different. And we struggled a little bit. We drew with Spurs on the back of a Champions League game. And we weren't the only Champions League team to struggle maybe during that period, right? So as we're looking at April and hopefully get through Porto, we're going to see what the fixture list really looks like. And trust me, our assessment of this starting 11 will change immediately. And we'll start to target teams for that day on a particular day, and certain players are going to have to play their part. And so this is why I didn't want to get trapped in that. If we get through this time, the first time in 14 years we're in a Champions League quarterfinal, that's mate, I can't remember. I can't tell you the last one, right? I can't even tell you what that feels like, what that's going to do, given the emotional state of the Emirates right now. I mean, you were there against Newcastle, so you know what I'm talking about. The Liverpool game was very similar to that, but you could probably times it by 2 based on the opposition, right? So could you imagine if we're playing a big team in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, what it's going to do to everybody's mindset, right? So we got so much more to go. And hence why we, in all the opto analysis stuff, we're probably a 13-14% chance, because we have yet to convince people that we are to be trusted. Now, fortunately, I've got a couple of friends, in you and Scott in particular, that make me feel comfortable with data. And in all the times I've been looking at Arsenal data-wise, this is the best we've looked. I don't understand why we're not given a greater chance to win more, but is what it is.
I think it's just the fixtures, Clive. We like if you look at Liverpool, they don't have a lot left that's particularly scary. We still go to the Etihad. We still go to Tottenham Hotspur, if you consider that a tough game. We still go to Old Trafford to the extent that there's anything scary about that fixture. We have Brighton away. We still, let's put it this way. Between April and middle of May, we're going to play. I mean, here, I just have it in front of me to give you a sense. We still play Chelsea, go to City, go to Brighton, still play Villa, go to Spurs, go to United. I mean, those are fixed, and Wolves away, which I don't think is a banker by any means. So the only remaining games that I think you'd have is like bankers for us, to the extent that anything is in the Premier League, is home to Luton, home to Everton. I'm going to say home to Bournemouth, but I have very vivid memories of that fixture.
Why is Liverpool's fixture list look so more easier than ours? I mean, what do they have?
That we will do a Predictatron pretty soon, but they have they have City at home, United away.
They're not winning that.
They'll beat United away. I mean, by 6 or 7. They have Fulham away, I guess is tricky. Spurs at home, Villa away. So, I mean, look, I'm not saying it's a cakewalk for them, but they have the lead and the slightly easier fixtures, at least according to what the computer says. Now, what makes their life a little weird is they have the extra round Europa League. They still have an FA Cup quarterfinal. Like, for example, they're going to play potentially. I mean, we're going to play every 3 days too, so it probably doesn't matter. But they have a lot of fixtures ahead of them, and they are in the midst of an injury crisis. So I do think the percentage is really just based on the fact that, first of all, Liverpool are ahead of us, and we don't get to play them again, so we don't have the opportunity to get that 6-pointer. And we have the slightly harder fixtures.
Yep, and they've not got their goalkeeper, who's an anomaly in himself, right? And,
I mean, he is If you wanted to say he's their second best player behind Salah, I'd give it to you. Van
Yeah.
Dijk would have a word and Alexander-Arnold would have a word, but he's in the conversation.
Right. So all of their, of their key players, they're coming back from injury, or they won't be available for quite a while. And so there's a level of, I have a view on this, how it's going to work. I'm not saying we're going to win, but I actually think of all the three teams, the anomaly team is Liverpool. They're the ones that are over-exceeding. I think we are rounding into form versus a monster team that know the course. But I think we can turn up against City and we can do what we need to do. Doesn't mean we're going to win it, but I do think we're coming away with something. We're leaving there with something. That's my view.
I'll say this, forget the underlying metrics for a minute. One thing that's sort of been sticky in Premier League history is that the team with the best goal difference is usually the best team. It's not always the case. But we now have a goal difference edge that isn't minor. It's 10 over City and it's 6 over Liverpool. And if you look at the underlying, if you prefer that stuff, our plus 36.8 XG difference is almost 7 better than City and 10 better than Liverpool. I don't think at any point last season, even at our peak, I don't know that our underlyings were really better than City.
No.
So this is kind of unique. I mean, one thing that I think is pretty funny, if you ask me, is that our goal difference, we have a higher goal difference than United have scored goals. We're plus 39 in goal difference. They've scored 37 goals. Let's just laugh at United. Let's make sure we take time to do that. Clive, before we do that, though, we haven't done something really important in this pod that has to get done. We got to talk about the returning players. So Trossard came on. He was fine. Set that aside. We know Trossard.
Yep.
Vieira, Partey, Jesus. I want to take them not in that order. I want to start with Thomas Partey because I think he had the return that most people were kind of shaking their heads at a little bit. I think Thomas Partey falls in that Aaron Ramsey thing of he just doesn't look good when he comes back. I think this was like a 4 out of 10 from him, but I don't know that surprises me because he just never looks good when he's just coming back. He's going to be super rusty. I think the thing that jumped out at people was he had a couple of losses of the ball in dangerous areas. And you start thinking back to games last season like West Ham, where he did that and it hurt us.
Let's stop here, right?
No. I'm not done yet. I think the thing with Thomas Partey, hang on, just 1 second. I think the thing with Thomas Partey is because it's been so long since we've seen him at his best, you can just, he's a blank canvas in a way to project things on him. We play a very different kind of way now. And so people are sort of trying to interpret where he might fit back in. I guess my bigger question is, he just looked very far away from ready. And I wonder what you think the timeline would be from him going from what we saw in this game to where he might have Mikel's trust to be in there when there's jeopardy. Like what's the distance he still has to travel?
Not sure. He hasn't played for 4 months, right? So I'm not sure if it is November for Vieira and October for Partey. So 4 months. We're now in March, right? So I'm not sure what people are expecting in minute 1. But for me, just get through it. No reaction. That's the key thing. No reaction at all because now you can build up from here. I actually thought he was fine. He had one dodgy pass when he just played it backwards to nobody. He had a Cedric present. Cheers, square pass. Thanks a lot, mate.
That was bad.
I just had my groins messed up for I don't know how long. So you give me one of them. I need to stand there like Rudolph Nureyev trying to retrieve one of your passes. And the rest, he was absolutely fine. He was dinking the ball over the top. Jesus running in behind. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're going to be fine. You're going to be absolutely fine. The only thing that worries me about him is just injury. If he's fit, and he's playing well, then he will play. And it's not just me saying that. It's everybody in the squad saying that. Everybody in the squad recognises his value and what he does. And the amount of times people gave him the ball was a joke. So I like the football player. As a player, I think he gives us something that we don't have. Is it going to be enough in time for Man City away? I'm not sure. But hey, look, it is what it is. If he's fit enough, great. If he's not, then we have to wait. We don't risk it for any one player. Simple as that. As for Vieira is somebody that, you can see the talent. You can see the talent. Can I see the intelligence for me? And can I see the relationships and connections? difficult to judge him 3-4 months out, playing on the right side, on the right wing. For me, that's a great backfill position for him.
Yeah.
But what we really want is to get into strong situations in games where he can play where Odegaard plays, and we can rest him every now and again, because we can't keep running him into the ground. And so his role is going to be very important in the crunch months, if we're still in this thing, to make sure we can rest Odegaard and still have that decisive last pass ability and shooting ability that Vieira can give us. So for me, I want to see him join our brain, because I'm not sure. You can be talented, but be slightly on the outside. All these players that we're talking about right now, you can debate if you have their form, apart from Cedric, you can debate their form, but they all look part of the one brain. Vieira, I'm still not sure yet. I'm not sure yet on that side of things. So that means he needs rhythm and time to play, rat-tat some passes, build some relationships, and then he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think the thing with Vieira is, if Mikel Arteta could have his perfect universe for that player, he would mature into a guy who can play left 8 for us, be an option in that role. I think that is the role that he'd like him to mature into.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and say he can't. I don't think right wing is going to ever be Fabio Vieira's role. I think it was, I need to take Saka off and I need to give Vieira minutes. And, Arsene Wenger used to do this, right? I got minutes available. I got a player I want to get fit or, get into shape. I'm going to throw him out on the right wing. Aaron Ramsey used to play there, coming back to get fit. So I don't think there's too much you can read into it, but I think what you can read into it is Mikel clearly wants Vieira to get back into the team enough that he gave him the half, right? He didn't give it to, I guess he could have brought Trossard on for that at halftime. That would have been an option.
He's building the squad, Elliot, isn't he? He's building the squad, right? And there are 3 players there that he brought on, which he sees as very important squad players, and they're going to have their time. I thought Jesus was cautious, but I thought he showed a bit of sharpness there that really encouraged me, and how he looked physically. I thought, oh, mate, you're not far away. 2 weeks training can transform it, literally transform it. The confidence he'll get from playing that game. There was clips of him doing the warm down running after the game, because there was people saying he felt his knee during the game, but there was definite clips doing the penalty box strides, and that means
he wasn't going very fast.
Yeah, but if he's doing that, Elliot, that's a sign.
He's fine. He's not
that's
injured.
A sign. And so now it's about how he reacts and recovers, and they can build him up. Mate, he's your boy, but he's not a kid. This is not someone that we can't rely on in the crunch moments, right? And honestly, we're going to need him real quick.
The thing about Jesus is you never fail to find him when he's on the pitch. He's not a player who drifts into the periphery. Sometimes to his detriment. If he doesn't get the ball, he'll just come all the way back to the defensive line to get the ball. He wants to feel the ball. He wants to be in the game. I thought he weirdly didn't take a shot across the keeper when he could have and instead cut it back. But then he had that beautiful shot on the volley that was well saved.
Yeah.
He flashed some stuff. Let's put it this way. For a guy who's been out a bit and struggling with fitness, he flashed things. So what I saw with my eyes, and my eyes are not trained to spot this stuff, so I could be wrong. He got the ball, I want to say, on the right, sort of our left wing, around the halfway line, and whipped a pass back across the pitch. Maybe it was to Saliba, or maybe it was to Cedric at that point.
Yeah.
And it looked like he limped a bit after and looked down at his knee and limped a bit. Yeah. I just don't know if he's right. I really don't know if he's right. And I wonder if he's going to be able to get right at all this season, or if he's going to be managing this. This could be one of those things where the right thing for the player would be to shut him down and he'd be ready next season. But we can't shut Jesus down. We can't. We need to use him if we can. So I think it's going to be a load management situation for the rest of the season. Then you hope he can just shut it down for the summer and really be fully back, because I've always said I just think the player's tremendously talented. And you even saw in this game, not at full fitness. He had one time he was in, maybe made the wrong decision to cut it back. Another time when he volleys it beautifully, it's well saved. He makes an impact every time he's on the pitch. I do think with the Vieira thing, like, it could have been Eddie Nketiah. It could have been Emil Smith-Rowe. It could have been Reece Nelson. Reece Nelson could have come on for Saka at halftime and played at right wing, would have been very comfortable. The fact that it was Vieira, to me, says that Mikel is looking for a way to get him the minutes he needs to be back in the group.
Yep.
I think there's a hierarchy developing. So I just want to ask you about this. Look, let's not talk about Cedric coming on. I do think it is a bit eye-opening that he was the only defender on the bench. Like, we need Zinchenko and Tomiyasu back. We cannot go into this run-in where it's 4 defenders on the pitch and Cedric is our only defender on the bench. So that's Tomiyasu and Zinchenko need to get their shit together and get back. But we're getting to an interesting situation here, Clive, that I just want to touch on quickly. We're not far away from Zinchenko and Tomiyasu being back, as I understand it. And that means Cedric probably drops off the bench. But it also means one of Reece or Eddie or Emil Smith-Rowe drops off the bench. If Timber comes back, another one of them. We're talking about match day squads that Nketiah and Smith-Rowe aren't making, or Nelson and Smith-Rowe aren't making. You think, and look, full fitness is a myth, right? It could be that Martinelli's out for 3 weeks. It could be that, and the idea, it's never 3 in, none out. Sometimes it's 3 in, 1 out. It works that way. We know that. But just as a thought exercise, it is getting to the point now, right, where those players who have been kind of clinging to the periphery of the squad and hoping to find their place, if they stop making match day squads, it's probably signaling a new beginning for them after this season, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't want to predict people's futures, but these conversations have no doubt been going on for weeks and months. And that's just the nature of it. Whenever we see something appear, it's already happened 3-4 months earlier. Right. So, and I always look at squad years as dog years, right? So every year is almost like 7 years of your life. And you just need to recognize that to be in this squad for a year is a major achievement, and where the standards are going. I mean, look, we have a goalkeeper in the PFA Team of the Year last season, and he's basically going to play one of his handful of Premier League games this year on the weekend. And we've all moved on in our minds. It's a really harsh sport, all with the need to raise standards so that we can get to where we want to get to. It's really harsh, and that's how it goes. I'm afraid some of these players are going to fall away, and then we're going to have to go again. And it's the nature of it, right? Everyone wants to be here. Everyone wants to be in this place, and to stay here, you've got to be on your game mentally and physically. Hence why my little rant about Ben White, you don't stay here if you don't care. You know what I mean? You don't stay here if you don't do the extras you need to do to get yourself into the shape you need to maintain your fitness. You don't stay at this level. If you want to mess about and pretend to be this level of player, then you're going to get pretend results. And someone else will come and take that shirt from you, and that's just the way it goes. So these conversations are coming, and some of these players, most of these players we really, really like, and we're connected to them. But we're also connected to the up escalator, as I said earlier on. And that's all I want to see us going forward and making good decisions, and in particular around recruitment.
It makes me sad, of course, to see like a player like an Emil Smith-Rowe not get a chance. I mean, I am sure if he had come on, he would have scored. He would have found a way to score in this game. But it tells you, right, like in a 6-0, in a laugher, in a game that was an exhibition. I mean, I've never seen a Premier League game like this. Not against Burnley when we were up big, not against West Ham. I've never seen a game that felt like literally Arsene Wenger's hilltop Germany training, preseason matches. That it was prioritized to keep Trossard sharp, that it was prioritized to get Vieira back to fitness. It was prioritized to get Jesus and Thomas Partey back to fitness, which I think are the priorities. Some people could say, well, why Cedric? Well, because we wanted to get White off, and he's the only defender we had. I'm sure we would have liked to have gotten 1 or 2 others off. We didn't have a chance to do that.
We have a history with White when he's overplayed, don't we? We can see it.
Yeah.
And so we've managed him really well. And funny enough, he's the one defender that's come off. And look at his form. It's like fantastic. Right up there. So we've learned. And that's positive.
Yeah, so I think if you can't get on in a 6-0 and you're staring down the barrel of losing a squad place, it's going to be decision-making time this summer for sure for a couple of players whose careers are at a pivot point, inflection point. So I think let's do this. Let's quickly.
I think Elliot, our financial results came out recently. Everything's trending in the right direction, apart from the one thing, and that's sales. Right,
player trading, yeah.
And we've got it set up. We've had the right level of exposure and loans. We need to improve on that. Money's there to buy, but you need to offset with player sales, and some of that's going to hurt. Simple as that.
Yeah. So Just as a last thing here, Manchester United got absolutely destroyed by Manchester City. But because they had a goal early and could have had maybe 2 or even 3, if it weren't for Marcus Rashford being absolutely terrible, um, this was a demolition against a United team who played sort of like Sheffield United did against us, sit deep and hope they could get out. They made very little effort to play. Marcus Rashford doesn't care. Bruno Fernandes doesn't care. Like, there's players there that don't care. And I see an interesting discourse popping up online and popping up around United, popping up around Pochettino as well. And it's look at this. I've been seeing a lot of screenshots of our run in December of 2020 when we were down bad before the Boxing Day miracle against Chelsea that delivered by Emil Smith-Rowe that turned our worlds around and turned Mikel Arteta's career around at Arsenal. And a lot of people saying, "Oh, at any other club you would have been sacked." We need to stick it out. Like, look what happened at Arsenal. They showed faith, and look at how they're being rewarded. And I think there's this weird sunk cost fallacy developing that the message is, if you just stick it out through bad times with a manager, you get to be where Arsenal are. Except the problem is, nobody's like Mikel Arteta. Eric Ten Hag isn't going to turn into Mikel Arteta. Pochettino's not going to turn Mikel Arteta. The structures at those clubs aren't going to turn into what Arsenal have. And so I wonder what you think of this idea that the lesson from Mikel Arteta is just stick it out when your manager's doing badly, and it'll eventually turn into what we have. Because I think it's broken people's brains, because what he's done is the exception, not the rule. And at United, I hope they stick it out, because they look absolutely lost, and City embarrassed them. They really did.
Yeah, so where are Manchester United right now? So they're looking to get some organisational clarity, right? So obviously, Jim has bought his part of the club for, what was it, 1.25 billion. So now he has control over football operations, and he's starting to make hires. He's got the guy out of City. He's looking at Dan Ashworth. The Dan Ashworth thing is no surprise to me, Elliot. We spoke about it many times before. And there are other people like, is it Wilcox from City they're looking at, who was at City as a recruitment academy guy. And there are other people there, Paul Mitchell, head of recruitment. They're looking at people like this, top people in the game. So first things first, they are organisationally looking to hire correctly. The final hire will be a new coach. And it'll be a new coach because the coach needs to be the most important person in the dressing room. And you say things like, this player doesn't care, that player doesn't care. I don't think I disagree that slightly. However, what I do know is the guy who's in charge of that dressing room may not be fully in charge of all of the players in their minds, because they have better contracts than he has. And they know there's a new ownership in place. And they know new ownership will want to bring in their own man. And so when that new man comes in, everyone's going to ship shape up. And so then it will go down from there. And they're going to be quoting Arsenal quite a lot in their plan. Because what Arsenal were able to do, whether people, not everyone would want to go on the whole journey with it, what Arsenal were able to do, they were prepared to take a step back before they went forward and pay people to go away and then invest in young players that were not ready, but they will be building experience. And they are building experience for today and for next year. They're still the third youngest squad in the league, but they are not the third least experienced squad. They are very experienced now. They've gone through quite a lot as a group together after the last 3 years. And they're in their second contracts and they're in the winning phase, right? They want to prepare, winning and compete phase. Manchester United got some housekeeping. They got to go for the blow-up phase, Elliot. Remember where we were? They got to go through that phase, and they got to pay people to go. And then when they go, they're going to have to invest in a new set of people and make them feel important leaders of the project. So they've got a way to go. I don't laugh at them, because I think Ineos will get it right.
Teach their own.
Yeah. me, you're different, right? So I know I study these guys. They will get it right. They will get it more right than they have done previously, put it that way. The ball is round and the grass is green. You never can sure what's going to happen. But they're looking at this in the right way. Now it's about giving those people time, finance to go into their project, wherever it's going to be. But what they have got that we haven't got, they've got a massive infrastructure project to do at the same time. And so huge challenges for that club. But they've got to take it on, because their place in the city has been absolutely usurped, and they can't continually get smashed live on TV by their local rivals. So I use the word rivals loosely, because there is no rivalry.
they're going to have to take an ego hit too, which is I don't think they can just assume that the best talent will come to Manchester United. And I don't think it behooves them to overpay. So they're going to have to try to. The problem for United is incrementalism isn't approvable. What I mean by that is the right strategy for United would be to try to become a consistently sixth, fifth, fourth place team. Consolidate some talent that can get you consistently to being maybe a Champions League team. Then layer on top of that the talent that can take you to the top of the table. But they won't do incrementalism. They try to swing for the fences every window. And what they wind up doing is overpaying for players that can't fix it. But the thing that I think is so interesting is this narrative that the lesson from Arteta is to just stick with a manager who's failing and eventually he'll succeed. I think the other thing that you forget with Mikel, or some people do, this was his first ever job. So we weren't totally sure what he would be. We thought he could be special, but he needed some time to make mistakes and learn. Guys like Ten Hag, guys like Pochettino, if they don't have it figured out by now, they probably won't, or at least not at the club they're at. And so we see other managers fail at one place and then succeed in another. Unai Emery is a great example. David Moyes is a good example, right? Maybe Graham Potter will become a good example. But I don't think that the lesson is that United should have stuck with David Moyes or that Arsenal should have stuck with Unai Emery. Like, do people really believe that if we had stuck with Emery, we'd be right where we are now? No. And so I hope that the lesson United take from this is stick with Erik ten Hag forever, because they have no style. They have no hope. City made them look bad. And I do agree with your assessment, which is this. I think Liverpool are flying very close to the sun right now. They have some very talented players, and they're playing on emotion, and they play this high wire active football where the other team gets chances and they get chances and games fall where they fall. And right now they're falling in their favor. And to be fair, some of that is, as I mentioned, they're playing the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th place teams. I realize we played two of those as well. But I think in terms of absolute dominance, the ability to shut the opponent's opportunities down and get opportunities themselves, City and Arsenal play a different level of football. And I think Arsenal even a level above that. Now, City have a guy named Erling Haaland, for example. They have Kevin De Bruyne. They have players that can make up a gulf. I think we have a few as well. But it wouldn't surprise me if City were able to beat Liverpool and this title race started to look a little more like it's between City and Arsenal again, especially with the fixtures Liverpool have. And to be fair, their massive injury crisis that they're coping with.
They're doing well to stay where they are. I don't know how
absolutely, no doubt. They have Klopp. He's special.
And he's closing the gap, right? So he closes the gap on emotion and the ability to react from the bench. We close the gap on coaching and connectivity in the group. That's our win, right? So and what I will say, what people haven't seen yet, is our strength. And the only way you can judge that strength in those duels, in those one-on-ones, is at the Etihad. We're going to go there strong. I honestly, mate, I can't wait. Win or lose, we're going to find out. I can't wait.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well said. I think it's a great place to leave it. We're going to look ahead to the Brentford game. We've got trap game discourse coming. Because for anyone who's like, I don't understand what a trap game is, this is the quintessential trap game. We've been playing incredible. There will be the presumption that we're going to beat Brentford at home, who are not in a good moment. We are going to maybe even rotate players to try to be ready for Porto. And the Porto game feels like our whole season in a way.
Huge.
And being able to focus on Brentford at home, and it'll be Ramsdale keeper, so that's already a change. And maybe changing a little, like Jorginho maybe gets rested so he's fully ready for Porto. That game is what a trap game is. And so we'll talk about that more later this week, but I think Mikel is such a powerful motivator. This is going to be his biggest motivational challenge of the season, because that Porto game, look, it's impossible not to be thinking about. We're talking about it now, right? And so he's got a job on his hands to keep us focused for a game that we should win, but we will not win if we are thinking about Porto while we're on the pitch there. So
Agreed.
That's one that we're going to be talking a lot about. We'll leave it there. We're going to have plenty of stuff over on Patreon if you want to join. I really, really can't recommend strongly enough the David Hartrick pod on Gyökeres and Ferguson and some of their departures in recent times in De Zerbi. So lots of good stuff over there. You can check it out. We'll leave it there for now. Clive's on Twitter, ClivePFC. Good to have you back, man.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith, Blackman Twitter, Yank Gunner. Didn't happen against Sheffield United, but maybe in the next game. We'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Brentford 0.